everyone, I'm Varshini from Sedu Institute of Technology, Karyapati, Madurai, and I'm going to talk about Hadoop. Now we are going to see about what is Hadoop. Now in agenda, we are going to see about what is a big data and applications of a big data, what is Hadoop, subject projects of a Hadoop, project architecture, topology in Hadoop, features of Hadoop. Now we are going to see about what is big data. Big data is a collection of a data that is a huge in a volume yet growing exponentially with the time. It is a data that with a large size or and the complexity that none of the translational data management tools can store it or process it efficiently. Big data is also called as data but with a large huge amount. Next, we are going to see about what are the applications of a big data. The applications are banking and security, communications, media and entertainment, healthcare providers, education, manufacturing and the neutral resources, government and insurance. Now we are going to see about what is Hadoop. Hadoop, as we know about framework written in a Java that utilize a large cluster of a commodity hardware to maintain and store big size data. Hadoop works a map-reduce programming algorithm that was introduced by Google. Today, lots of big bang companies are using Hadoop in their organization to deal with the big data. For example, Facebook, Yahoo, Netflix, eBay, etc. The Hadoop architecture are mainly consist of four components. They are Hadoop map reducing, HDFS, which called Hadoop Distributed File System, Yarn, yet another resource negator, common utilizers or Hadoop common. First, we are going to see about Hadoop MapReduce. MapReduce nothing but just like an algorithm or a data structure that is based on the Yarn framework. The major features of a MapReduce is to perform the distributed processing in parallel in a Hadoop cluster, which makes Hadoop working so fast. When you are dealing with the big data, serial processing is no more of any use. MapReduce has mainly two tasks which are divided as a phase-wise. First is the map is utilized and in next phase reduce is utilized. Here we can see the input in the providing of a MapReduce function. Next we are going to see about FDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. Hadoop distributed file system is utilized for storage permissions. It is mainly designed for working on commodity hardware devices. Working a distributed file system designs. HDFS is designed in such a way that it is believes more in storing the data in a large chunk of a block rather than sorting small data blocks. HDFS in Hadoop provides fault tolerance and a high availability to the storage layer and the other devices present in the Hadoop cluster. Data storage nodes in HDFS are name node and data node. In this, name node is a master and the data node is a slave. Okay. First, we are going to see about name node. Name node works as a master in a Hadoop cluster that guides the data nodes. Name node is mainly used for sorting the metadata, that is, the data about the data. Metadata can be the transaction alongs that keeps tracking of the user's activity in the Hadoop cluster. Metadata can also be the name of the file, size, and the information about the locations of a dominant, that is, name data stores in finds the closest data node for faster communication. Name node instructs the data node with the operations like delete, create, replicate, etc. Then we are going to see about data node. Data node works as a slave data node are mainly utilized for storing the data in a Hadoop cluster. The number of a data node can be from 1 to 500 or even more than that. The more number of data nodes, the Hadoop cluster will be able to store more data. So it is advised that the data node should have a high storing capacity to store a large amount of files blocks. The file block is a HDFS. The data in a HDFS is always stored in terms of a blocks. So the single block of a data is divided into a multiple blocks of size, that is 128 MB, which is default and you can also change manually. Next, we are going to see about rare awareness. The rare awareness is nothing but the physical collection of a node in a Hadoop cluster. A large Hadoop cluster is consists of so many racks. With the help of the racks, information name chooses the closest data node to achieve the minimum performance with the performance to read and write information, which reduce the network traffic. Next, we are going to see about YARN. Yarn is defined as a framework on which a MapReduce works. Yarn from two operational that are job scheduling and the resource management. The purpose of job scheduler is to divide a big task into a small job so that each job can be assigned to various layers in a Hadoop cluster and the processing can be minimized. Job cluster also keeps tracking on which is job is important, more priority. Dependence between the job and all the other informations like job timing, etc. and the uses of resource management is to manage all the resources that made availability to run a Hadoop cluster. The features of Yarn are multi-tendency, scalability, cluster utilization, and complexity. Hadoop Common and the community use are Hadoop Common are utilized nothing but the Java library and the Java files, or we can say that JavaScript that we need for all the other components present in a Hadoop cluster. These utilize are used for HDFS yarn and the MapReduce for running the cluster. Hadoop Common verified that a hardware failures in a Hadoop cluster is common on it need to be solved automatically when the software by the Hadoop framework. Next, we are going to see about what is a Hadoop architecture. In a Hadoop architecture, we are going to see that map reducing, HDFS, Yarn, Hadoop Common. In map reducing, that is a distributed processing. HDFS na distributed storage. Yarn na yet another resource negator that job should scheduling and the resource management. Hadoop Common means it a job library and the utilities. First one, map reducing, that we all of that already we told about that how the map reducing will be functioned by the big data. Already we told about the map reducing nothing but algorithm that the data structures that based on the yarn framework. The major features of map reducing is to perform the distributed processing in a parallel Hadoop cluster, which makes a Hadoop work so fast. When you are dealing with the big data, serial processing are no more of any use. Map reducing has mainly two tasks or divided phases. The first is the map and then a reducer. These are the two topics. Here we see that the input provides to the map. In this diagram, we are going to see that this is a diagram, but we are going to see that here input provides a map function that its output is used to input the reduce functions and after that receives a final output. Let's understand that what is map and the reduce function. As we all see that an input provides a map function. Now we are using a big data. The input is set of data. The map functions we break this data blocks into triples that are nothing but a key value pair. These key value pairs are now sent as an input to reduce function. The reduce function then combine these broken triples or a key value pairs based on their key value and from set of tuples and perform some operations like sorting, summarization, type job, etc., which are sent in the final output node. Finally, the output will be obtained The data processing is always done the reducer depending upon the business requirement for that industries. This is how first map functions and the reduce is utilized by one. Let's make understand that map reduce task and reduce task in the details. Map reduce map task. In this record reader, map combiner, partitioner. There are four types. Record reader is the purpose of record reading is to break the records. It is responsible for providing key value pairs in the map functions. The key usually allocation information and value is data associated with it. The map is nothing but the user defined function whose work is a purpose that tuple obtained from the record reader. The map function either does not generate any key pair or generate a multiple pair of these tuple. Combiner. Combiner is used for grouping a data in the map workflow. It is similar to a local reducer. The intermediate key value that are generated in a map combined with the help of a combiner. These combiner. Using a combiner it is not necessary as it is optional. Partitioner. Partitioner is responsible for fetching key values that generated in a mapper phase. The partitioner generated the shades corresponding to each reducer. Hash codes of each key is also fetched by the partition. The partitioner performs its modules with the number of reducers. Now we are going to see about reduce task. For the reduce task, there are three points: shuffle and sort, reduce, and output format. Shuffle and sort. The task of the reducer starts with the steps, the process which is the mapper generates the intermediate key values and transfers them from the reducer task is now the shuffling. Using the shuffling process, the system can sort the data using the key values. Once some of the mapping tasks are done, shuffling being that while is a faster process and does not wait for the completion of a task performed by the mapper. Reduce. The main functions of a task that reduce it together the triple generated from the map and the performance some sorting and the aggregation sort of the process on those key value depends on its key element. Output format. Once all the operations are performed, the key value pairs with written into the files and helps the recording writer. Each recording, new line, and the key and value stay separate. Next, we are going to see about map task. We already told about the record reader and the map combiner and the partitioner. And then reduce task that also we talk about the shuffle and sort, reduce and output formats. Next is HDFS. We already told about HDFS is a Hadoop distributed system file system. It is utilized for storage permissions. It is mainly designed for working on a commodity hardware device, working on a distributed file system design. HDFS is designed in such a way that delivers more in storming the data in a large chunk of a block rather than sorting small data blocks. HDFS in Hadoop provides a fault tolerance and a high availability to the storage layer and the other devices present in a Hadoop cluster. The data storage nodes in the HDFS are name node and the data node. In name node, it is a master and the data node is a slave. Now we are going to see about what is a name node. Name node works as a master in a Hadoop cluster that guides a data node. Name node is mainly used for sorting the metadata, that is, the data about the data. Metadata can be transaction logs that keeps track to the user activity in a Hadoop cluster. Metadata can also be named as the file size and the information about the location of a data node. That a name node that stores and find the closest data node of a faster communication. Name node instructions on the data node with the operation like delete, create, replicate, etc. Next we are going to see about data node. Data node is works as a slave data node are mainly utilized for sorting the data in a Hadoop cluster. The number of data node can be formed from 1 to 500 or even more than that. The more number of data node that a Hadoop cluster will be able to store more data. So it is advised that the data node should have a high sorting capacity to store the large amount of a block file. This is a high level architecture of a Hadoop. In this file block, we are seeing that file block, okay. The file block is defined as a HDFS, always stored in a terms of a blocks. So the single block of a data is divided into a multiple block size of as that 128 MB, which is default, and they can also change it as manually. Let us understand the concept of breaking down files into blocks with examples. Suppose we have uploaded a file for 400 MB to your HDFS, then what will happen if the file got divided into a blocks of 120 MB plus 120 MB plus 128 MB plus 116 MB is equal to 400 MB size. It means four blocks are created, each are 128 MB except the last one. Hadoop doesn't know or it doesn't care about what data are stored into these blocks, so it considers the final files blocks are participated records as does not have any idea regarding it. In Linux file system, the size of the file block is more about 4 KB, which is very much less than default size of file blocks in the Hadoop file system. As we all know about a Hadoop, in mainly figure for the following large size data, which is petabyte. That is, which makes a Hadoop file different from the other files. It can be scaled nowadays. File blocks of a 128 MB to 256 MB are considered in Hadoop. Next, we are going to see about read operation in Hadoop. Read operation is defined as a it is defined as a in HDFS, when a client is opening or reading or closing the operating system, that the data flows from from the data node, which is reading, and which is named as a metadata flow. Next, we are going to see about write operations in HDFS. These are the operations which in the HDFS. Next, we are going to see about yarn. Yarn is defined as a yet another resource negator. Yarn is a framework on which the map reduces works. Yarn performs two operations that are job scheduling and resource management. The purpose of job scheduler is to divide a big task into a small jobs so that each job can be assigned to a various slaves in a Hadoop cluster and the processing can be maximized. Job scheduler also keeps tracking which job is important, which job has more priority, dependence between the job and all the other informations like job timing, etc. And the use of a resource manager is to manage all the resources that are made available to running a Hadoop cluster. Now we are going to see the features of Yarn. The features of Yarn are multi-tendency, scalability, cluster utilization, comparability. First, we are going to see about Hadoop common or a Hadoop utilizer. Hadoop common or a common utilizers are nothing but a Java library under Java files, or we can say that the JavaScript that we need all the other components present in the Hadoop cluster. These utilizers are used for HDFS, yarn, and MapReduce for running the cluster. Hadoop common verify that hardware failure in a Hadoop cluster is common, so it need to be solved automatically in a software by the Hadoop framework. In the network topology in Hadoop, in order to achieve this Hadoop, cluster formation makes use of a network topology. Network bandwidth availability to process varies depending upon the location of a process. That is, the bandwidth available comes lesser as we go from process on the same node, different nodes on the same rack, nodes on a different rack of the same data center, node in the different center. Features of Hadoop. The features of Hadoop are open source, highly scalable cluster, fault tolerance is available, high availability in provided, cost effective. Hadoop provides flexibility, easy to use. Thank you.